Alex Caruso has been linked to multiple trade rumors recently and could return to the Los Angeles Lakers. We'll cover that and a few other potential trade options for him and the Bulls in this episode of Bulls Digest. I'm your host, Joey Mercer, and let's get right into it. So yeah, executive actually came out and said that the Lakers wanted Alex Caruso. This came from an executive in the Eastern Conference, and we're not quite sure who it is. It remains anonymous at this very moment. However, they definitely have some intel where the Bulls also in the Eastern Conference, this could be somebody close to them. It's hard to say right now if this is going to be for sure, but the Lakers said as soon as a move was made that he left the Los Angeles Lakers, that they regretted letting him go, and they're going to look to trade back for him now. And this is really big news. The Lakers are a piece away from being a contender, and the Bulls right now are in kind of this weird mix of a play-in position. So if they were able to move Caruso for some young talent, maybe that would be the right move, and maybe that would get the ball rolling on moving DeMar DeRozan or Zach Lavine, and we could start a rebuild now, and maybe it wouldn't be a long one if we could get some established young guys in here. I would like us to contend, but is it the best opportunity for us this season? That's hard to say. I would really, really, really like to see the team get back with Lonzo Ball, see how they all mesh together, and try that out first before we just blow things up. However, if a trade was on the table for Alex Caruso for some nice prospects or solid draft capital, it's hard to turn it down right now, although he did make an all-defensive team last year and is a very valuable player to any team that he can play on. It is said that coveted is a good word for him. If you want to make a trade tomorrow, they could trade Alex Caruso, the executive said. Half the teams in the league would be there with an offer. There's a lot of teams monitoring that situation, and they're looking at Caruso more than anyone on that roster. Just a matter of when the Bulls are ready to make changes and ready to let him go. So right now, of course, after making an all-defensive team, as I just mentioned, the Bulls are not looking necessarily to move Caruso. However, they might be looking to move anyone if this season doesn't go as planned. Although Lonzo Ball might be back next season, it is uncertain if he'll ever play basketball or at that level ever again, as he did for them in the first season that he played there. Um, a big thing to mention as well is the Bulls have some young guys on the team right now that they've kept around. Dalen Terry, they just got Julian Phillips. We have Patrick Williams, who is still young, and Kobe White is not yet reached his prime. So there are some young talent that we have in this lineup that we could build upon if we were to move some of the older pieces. Not to say any of the older pieces are bad, but maybe they're not the direction that we're looking to go in right now, and maybe those players would be better suited on contenders or just a different situation. I think Vooch has been great as of late. He didn't have the best game of his season so far against the Jazz, struggling early, but he was so good in the previous few games before that, ever since the bad Detroit loss. And Lavine has been a little bit streaky the year, but he did have a 51-point game. DeMar struggled with the pull-up jumper over top of people, but I look for him tonight against the Orlando Magic to pick things up again and get his season back on track. It all depends on how everybody performs, and I think a big change is going to happen by the All-Star break this season, and definitely the trade deadline. So next thing I want to talk about is, what would the Bulls get in return? Is it even going to be worth moving on from a player of the caliber of Alex Caruso? Or is it just worth keeping the asset for now and letting it roll over? It's difficult to say, but in my personal opinion, I think that a guy like Alex Caruso can fit on any team very well, and that means that a team might overpay for him right now. He has lots of value, but at the end of the day, he's not a guy that puts the ball in the basket a lot. He's able to, but he doesn't do it that often. Instead, he's putting up around 6 points a game and gives you all his value from defense and really getting into anybody that he can guard. He doesn't mind switching on to bigs. He doesn't mind diving on the floor. He doesn't mind putting his body on the line. And that's a player that you have to love to see. It is said by the executive that they asked that they wouldn't give up a first round, this being the Lakers, of course, pick, but they could give up Jalen Hood-Schifino and another contract if they wait until December 15th. Or Max Christie. He has some value, the executive said. They're not giving up a pick, but they have young guys they can put up there. Those two players are solid prospects. Max Christie hasn't shown us too much, but Lakers fans seem to love him, so there has to be something there for their fan base to be enamored with him. Jalen Hood-Schifino has shown me some glimpses of being a pretty athletic player, and he seems like he's a player that could be in the NBA right now, and he's a player that we could definitely develop with the Windy City Bulls, of course, in the G League. He along with a guy like Dalen Terry, gets me pretty excited for some guys that could be up in the next couple of years and give some big rotation minutes to the Bulls, and some solid play out of those guys as well would be really nice to see. Is Alex Caruso worth giving up for these guys? I don't think so. If you can't get Jalen Hood-Schifino and Max Christie, or either or and a pick, I don't think you're getting enough in return. That's an underpayment in my opinion, not an overpayment. You're paying for a player that hasn't really proven himself by giving up Alex Caruso, who when you put on the Los Angeles Lakers can solve a lot of their defensive issues in their backcourt. Right now they have D'Angelo Russell, and he's backed up by Gabe Vincent, who has struggled early. Both of them have. Not only on the offensive end, but the defensive end as well. So if they had a Caruso in there, that would be someone to really help off the bench potentially for them, where they start Austin Reeves and really like him, rightfully so. And that could be somebody to really, really help that bench defense, anchor it, and get them to where it needs to be, as they haven't really gotten enough consistent production off of their bench. The numbers of LeBron being on and off the floor are crazy in favor of LeBron being on the floor. So it's important to think that really the bench is the ones that are struggling here, and they need to get somebody to help anchor at least a defense or stronger offensive play. Next, I want to talk about, should they even trade him? Is that deal worth it? I don't think it is, like I just mentioned briefly. However, it is important to note that, is this the year that we need to contend, or is it the year that we need to really blow things up? We need to look at what's coming up in each draft. This next draft coming up is not that great, but if we are able to get a pick for the year after, that is a solid draft that I know from right now, and that is something that we should try to aim for if we're not able to make a solid playoff push this season. If the Bulls around the trade deadline and the All-Star break are not a solid above 500 team, or just hovering around a win or two above, then I think it is time to move on from some of the stars, get back what you can while you're still able to, and get some value back for these contracts before they aren't worth anything, and do not let players walk away in free agency without getting anything in return unless you're looking to make a push that season. It makes no sense if we're not going to make a push for a title in the year or a solid playoff push, and then not offer to move these players and get anything back if they aren't going to re-sign with the team because they're disgruntled, or things aren't working out on the court for them, or they're just having struggles. It's good to sell high and not wait too long, but you also don't want to sell low too early. Very important thing to mention. So, and the Bulls should keep him as long as they can, as long as he can perform at this level and is performing so high. I don't think it's time to sell yet, but if the right deal is there, then they definitely need to take it. This has been your host, Joey Mercer. I can't wait to see you on the next episode of Bulls Digest.